I used to fear myself. I used to fear failing. I used to fear the idea that I wasn't able to be considered good. If I could beat these guys, I didn't know. I was afraid of everything, and it took me a long time to understand that. But fighting through it literally allowed me to come to terms with what that even meant. And so over the years, like, that feeling in the cage is been the same. It's just meant different things as the fights had gone on. Make a choice. Be a champion.
Okay, Coach. All right, so tell me a little bit about your first fight in Mexico.
Man, my first fight was completely nuts. Honestly, it was a complete accident, and it was never even planned. I had only been training, I think, if I can remember correctly, it was about 2 months, and it wasn't even real training. This was me trying to figure this stuff out. I had done maybe a little bit of boxing, mostly wrestling, and I took a few jiu-jitsu classes, and then I was a broke artist at the time. And the coach I was training with asked me if I wanted to do a fight, and it offered some money, and I was like, yeah, sounds like a real stupid idea, let's do it. And but what was crazy about it was that this was back when there was not even shows around. It was still illegal in California, and the fight ended up being in Tijuana, Mexico. The craziest thing about this was that like I said, I had only been training about 2 months, and they asked me about the fight on a Wednesday. I ended up going to Tijuana on a Friday for weigh-ins, and then Saturday I ended up fighting at this place called the Baby Rock Casino. When it was all said and done, I made $150 in a cash envelope.
And what was your thought process like as you're entering that cage?
Well, it was actually a ring. So it was at this 3-story bar, and they had a ring right in the middle of it. It was crazy. It reminded me of any movie you've ever seen where the bad guy just killed somebody before the main character had to go like fight. It was nuts. And I was terrified, absolutely terrified. I don't even think I'd ever really watched any MMA before then. I mean, because when this happened, the only thing that there was some of the early UFCs. There wasn't really much accessible. It's not like it is now. I didn't know any of the names. I didn't know anything that was going on. I just knew that it was fucking insane. And when I fought, I had no idea what I was doing. I remember, here's one thing I remember. I wore wrestling shoes to hopefully intimidate my opponent that I was a wrestler, and then that might give me some kind of an edge. Like, how crazy is that?
And when it was all said and done, you won, right?
Yeah, I did. I won by 3rd round submission. But that is after I've got suplexed on my head twice. I was so exhausted that going into the 3rd round, the referee actually had to pick me up off the canvas and walk me to my corner. That would never happen now. And I literally got beat up for 3 rounds and somehow pulled off a submission in the 3rd round. And it was a submission I had learned like maybe the week or 2 before that. It was a guillotine choke. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy.
And so now this is what pretty much started your journey from then on, right?
Yeah, it was like the heroin addiction right after that. It was one of those things that were, for the first time in my life, I was completely unplugged from the Matrix. It was just insane. I mean, going in there, not knowing what to expect, and then having this surreal moment of fighting where I just went out there and literally just fought my heart out, and I had no cardio, I had no training, and it was one of those things where I was like, oh my god, like this is pretty amazing. I wonder what this could turn into if I actually trained. And after that fight, I took about a year just to properly train before I ended up doing another fight.
Cool. So from that point forward, like every time you entered a fight, were the feelings similar, or?
It's different. The fear is always similar, but the feeling of being unplugged from the world is something that is consistent across the board. When you fight, there's just this freedom that nothing else can ever compare to, and only the people that have been in there that have done it can understand what I'm saying. It's completely unique to any emotion, any feeling, anything you can even compare it to. I mean, I'll even relate it to sex, that it's on a whole different level of intimacy than sex in a way, because you're so connected to what's happening and you're so in tune with yourself that nothing else around you exists. It's pretty fucking crazy, and that's the addiction. It's the addiction of really confronting yourself, confronting your battles. And it took me years to figure out what that fear was, because I used to fear myself, I used to fear failing, I used to fear the idea that I wasn't able to be considered good, if I could beat these guys. I didn't know. I was afraid of everything, and it took me a long time to understand that, but fighting through it literally allowed me to come to terms with what that even meant. And so over the years, like, that feeling in the cage has been the same. It's just meant different things as the fights had gone on. Hey guys, if you like this episode, follow the podcast and subscribe to our YouTube channel.